Morning, Mark.
Good morning. How are you going?
I'm all right. I'm all recovered from COVID now, which is good. Can get back to my normal life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this should be good. Do you want me to read out the thumbnail this morning?
Yes, tell us about who the animals are in our thumbnail.
Okay, so the animals in our thumbnail, I don't know their names specifically, but they're from a sanctuary in Scotland called Tribe Animal Sanctuary Scotland, or TASS, I guess, TASS. And it just talks a little bit how they're dealing with the cold weather. Apparently, they've had some cold weather in Scotland at the moment. Um, it says it was -10 here the other day. That's -10 degrees Celsius. And you can see the sheep cope well. They have found some early morning sun to enjoy, chewing on the cud and relaxing. Their wool is a great insulator. And the people at the sanctuary said if you put your hand into the wool, you can feel the warmth. It traps it like they have a waterproof hoodie on, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet. I bet it looks very warm, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I hope all the animals in the sanctuaries around Scotland and the UK are doing okay at the moment.
Yes. And their wool is to keep them warm, not us.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, the guests that we're having on our stream today are from Scotland. Well, actually,
Oh,
they're from Adelaide. They're from Adelaide, but they're currently in Scotland on an exchange.
what a
But
coincidence.
yeah. All right, so I'm going to bring them on now. We have Ella and Jake joining us, and they can tell us a bit about themselves. All right, hello, Ella and Jake.
Hey,
Hi,
Steph.
Steph and Mark.
How you going?
It's nighttime over there now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
It's pitch black
is.
at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, whereas it's morning for us. But I'm glad that we could line up our times and have you guys on.
Yeah, it's good to be on. What time is it there again? It's about 8:30, 9 o'clock in Adelaide.
Yeah, about 8:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
thanks for inviting us on, Steph and Mark. Keen to chat
that's
with
all good.
you too.
Yeah. So I thought maybe today we could just get you guys to tell us a bit about your vegan stories, and we might just ask you a few questions and just have a casual chat with each other. So I guess people might not know, Ella is my sister, my younger sister, and Jake is Ella's partner. So, and obviously Mark is my husband, so we're all kind of family here today.
Keeping it in-house.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to just start off telling us why you're in Scotland? Why there's two Adelaide vegans all the way in Scotland?
Sure. So, last year I had a wacky idea to just leave Adelaide to go on an exchange in Glasgow. And I thought it would be, a nice way to explore a new city, to live in it for 6 months. And I convinced Jake to come with me. So we're both here. And thanks for sharing that info about the sanctuary in Scotland. I was trying to look up some sanctuaries to maybe visit one or help out, I don't know, at some point. But it has been very cold here, pretty much the opposite to Australian weather right now. Very, very windy recently. But we're enjoying it. Do you have anything to say about us being in Scotland, Jake?
I guess, we're just starting to acclimatise to the new country, new city. It's going pretty well, and we're learning a lot about Scotland every day, every week. So, we're enjoying it so far.
What's it like being vegan in Scotland at the moment? You've been there a couple of weeks now?
Yeah, I think it's different. I wouldn't say it's necessarily, obviously better or obviously worse than Adelaide. That's something that, I was trying to grapple with for a little while. What do you think, Ella? Any general thoughts on your first impressions of Scotland? versus Adelaide?
So, yeah, in terms of our personal, immediate desires, like we've kind of explored the food scene a bit. And so that's been super exciting, just kind of being able to try all new and different food. Yeah, I think there's definitely, I would say, in terms of the amount of vegan food and whatnot, it's quite comparable to Adelaide. Maybe more things in supermarkets. Everything's kind of labeled really well in supermarkets, at least here in Glasgow, which I found really useful. And yeah, we've found a few very cool vegan places that have like great music and a really great vibe. So there's also amazing places in Adelaide. This is different. Like,
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I definitely agree that in the UK, it seems like there's more products in the stores. That's one of the things that I think is generally true here. So, yeah.
Have you been to like an all vegan place, like an all vegan restaurant?
Yeah.
Are there many of those around? Because I know that's something that here in Adelaide, people are getting a bit worried because they seem like all the totally vegan places we have seem to be kind of closing down.
Yeah. So there's definitely quite a few vegan places because we've only been here for a short amount of time. It's a bit hard to gauge if it's similar to Adelaide, as in places closing down or not. We have heard that has occurred a little bit here.
Yeah.
It's probably related to this, state of the world right now, really. Things are getting a bit tough for people in general. But I think I have a feeling that, there are a couple of vegan places here that widely attract, non-vegan people to go to. That's at least the impression I'm getting, unless there's a lot of like vegans here. Because like we went out to a restaurant on like Monday night, I think, and it was pretty packed. And same with like going on the weekend, like it's like you have to book, like it gets really busy. So yeah, it seems like there's a few popular restaurants that are kind of doing really well here that at least we've seen. So it's been good.
That's good.
What's the restaurant called? Is it called something obviously vegan, like so people would know that it's vegan?
No.
It's called Stereo. Yeah,
Called
that's
Stereo.
one place that we went a couple of times. We haven't seen it yet, but I think they have pretty regular live music there as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's one of like it's a vegan restaurant, but it also is like I think just top rated for like in general, like because I've seen people recommend it not for the vegan food, just because it's a good restaurant with like live music. So
Maybe if there's any Adelaide people out there listening, they can suggest some live music, maybe.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Nice. Well, that's good. It sounds like you're enjoying the experience so far. And we miss you. We miss you over here.
Yeah, we miss you guys too.
Yeah, it's a long way.
Yeah. But we're also happy for you that you're out experiencing the world. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. Yeah, we miss you too.
So maybe also just quickly tell us like what you're studying.
Yep.
Sure. I'll start. I'm doing mechanical engineering, majoring in medical technologies, and I'm doing it with an arts degree, doing art history.
Yeah, and I'm studying mechanical engineering as well. I'm also studying mathematics. So I'm doing those two things.
Yeah, and you guys are pretty close to the end, aren't you? Like for your degrees.
Yeah,
we
pretty much the last year. Yeah.
Last year. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working as well while studying, so that's been good to get that experience.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Well, now maybe we can shift the conversation to vegan stuff. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys can just tell us a bit about your vegan journey and what, when you went vegan, how and why, and just tell us a bit of a story. And then if there's any other experiences since you first went vegan, like up until now, yeah, feel free to share. So maybe Ellie, you can start.
Sure. Feel free to chime in if you have any questions. I'll try to remember the general gist of how things went. So I went vegan when I was 13. So that's, so nearly 10 years ago now. And it was my first year of high school. And before that, I'd been vegetarian for 3 years. So I went vegetarian when I was 10. Steph was a big influence on my life. My whole family went vegetarian at a roundabout time, and Steph went vegan at that time. Had an influence on our family, which was amazing. So yeah, so that was really good. And I went vegetarian, but I was constantly having conversations with Steph about veganism. I remember actually handing out like pamphlets with Steph about veganism, even when I wasn't vegan at the time. So like I was, trying to learn all this, but I felt like I was too young to go vegan. And then it took a few years, and I pretty much had a, light switch moment that I was like, well, even if I'm too young to go vegan because, health related reasons, like at that time, we were just, me and my mom, or my mom mostly, worried about, getting the right nutrients, that kind of thing. I was like, even if that is an issue, like I need to do this thing. Like I can't live another day not being vegan. So it was almost like I didn't even choose to be vegan. Like it was like, it's just something I had to do. So, after that, it was, a massive weight lifted off my shoulder, because I felt like I was, before that, I did feel like I was living not true to my values. And, I was in this kind of push and pull, about my ethics surrounding the animal rights. So, such a distinct moment in my head. I'm not sure if you guys have that as well, but like I remember the exact thought, I remember the exact moment, and I don't have the best memory, so it was a pretty life-changing instant, I think.
I had a similar experience too. Like, as you said, you felt like you had to go vegan even if there were consequences to that. It was like quite a strong drive.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to hear, like, what values does a 13-year-old have that drives them so diligently to be vegan? Like, what kind of values did you have at the time, do you think?
So I think it was like the concept of animal rights which cemented how I felt. Like the animals, shouldn't be exploited for, their bodies and their like labor. But I think also, just the idea of the immense suffering that happens. And, I think it was just the empathy towards, suffering, and then also, supported by just a knowledge that it's like, if I don't need this, like why, like I remember it was like one of my other sisters had made a cheesecake, and it was, in the freezer, and you could like eat it frozen. And I got out a spoon and I went to grab some, and before I grabbed it, it just hit me. I was like, I do not need to be eating this right now. So if I know that there's suffering behind it, like why would I eat it, right? And then from that moment, I was vegan. So it was like I literally went to eat like, something that had milk in it, and then I was thinking about, cows and the way their bodies are used, and their reproduction, and the way carbs are also used in those industries. So that was a bit of a roundabout way, but I think it was the empathy for suffering, and also, knowledge that it's not within my right to be imposing my use onto another person. Someone who has their own life and their own wants and experience in the world. So if it wasn't something that I needed to do, then I was like, well, why am I doing this anymore? Like it just like suddenly it just seemed warped. Like I was like, oh, this just does not feel right. So
I think,
yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Ella. And I think maybe, in terms of your question mark about like values, I definitely think that there was some kind of value in our family for animals. And I think, maybe that comes a little bit from dad, well, probably mom and dad. But, for me, I feel like our dad, Ella and me, our dad, has always kind of had this like, I don't know, thing about him. I don't know how to explain it, but I guess a value in looking after animals, looking after the environment. Like he's a bit of an environmentalist and always has been. And I think maybe there was kind of like a bit of an underlying value there that I guess was probably passed on to us kids, even though dad was never like vegetarian or anything until after we kind of made that move. But I think the value maybe came from our parents a little bit, just in being empathetic and caring about others, whether it's like just caring for something outside of yourself, like caring for the environment and the animals that are in it, and that kind of thing. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. That I think we definitely got those values from our family, and because I don't think, because then once we went vegan, mum and dad did also go vegetarian, even though it's not vegan. But they've never, I guess compared to some other families that I've seen where like some people are very against like veganism, I feel like mom and dad were never like that. When I went vegan, they were very kind of accommodating of it. And there was a little bit of like tension in the beginning, I remember. But they did like eventually realize that, we were right about animals and everything. So I feel like we were never one of those, I guess you see some families and they're just like, and very anti-vegan. And I don't think our family was like that. I think we were already kind of, with our values and everything, we were already kind of primed maybe for veganism. And then it just took a bit of a catalyst for it to kind of unfold. But which maybe that catalyst was my friend Ellie, who went vegan, who was the one that inspired me to be vegan, and then that kind of like flowed through. But then again, we have other family that aren't vegan or anything. So it probably does come down to a bit of individual values and a bit of family values. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really good point, Steph. And I think 100% like, our parents have influenced, us and me in that way. And it's also something that, I'm pretty proud about, that like our family is like fairly open-minded in that respect. That I think there's this, there can be this mentality that it's like the older you get, the less, change you can make in your life. And although, mum and dad, they eat mostly plant-based at home, but they're not vegan. They're vegetarian. Like they still did make a big change, in their later life surrounding, kind of ethical considerations. And they've encouraged us to also live, how we think is right. So I think that's really good. Yeah.
What was your
Yeah, and
experience growing up, Jake? Did you
Yeah.
have experience with animals growing up or anything?
It's interesting you mentioned that, Mark, because I think probably my biggest experience was my 2 cats that I had. Which, yeah, it's a little while ago now, but I had 2 pet cats. That probably allowed me to have a bit more empathy towards non-human animals. Like, it made it more apparent to me that I cared about other animals. I think before that, there wasn't, as much in that way. I was more so just in the human circles. So my experience was more, it developed later in life, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I can give a bit of context to how I became vegan as well. On that note, so
Well, do
I
we want
went
to
vegan
do you want to
4
ask
years.
Ella first, because that kind of precedes your story, right? A little bit.
Oh, what do we want to ask Ella?
we already did, didn't we?
Oh, but then in a timeline sense, if we're strictly going by timeline here.
Well, like Ella can tell a bit more about, her vegan journey and when she met Jake and stuff.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's important.
Yeah,
Well,
Jake will have his.
we can just let Jake tell his
Yeah.
perspective now.
Go on,
Yeah,
Jake.
we can loop back to that in a minute.
Maybe we could do it kind of chronologically, so each of us tell us like up until we go vegan, and then we'll go back and be like, what happened after you went vegan or something.
Yeah. So I guess it's complex how I went vegan. I thought about this a little bit over the last couple of days. I was just trying to pinpoint exactly where it started, and I think there's a few factors, there's a multitude of factors. But yeah, I went vegan about 4 years ago, so near the end of 2019. And I went vegan. I realized that my practices did not align with my values. So yeah, I used to consume quite a lot of meat. I have a very distinct memory of the last time that I was a non-vegan, and the night after that, I was vegan. I pretty much went vegan cold turkey. I just sort of gradually got enough courage to come to that point where I could live a vegan life. And I did that without any support from my family or anyone. I did have some experiences with vegetarians and vegans before that helped to prime me and plant that seed in me before I made that decision myself. So I had a friend who was vegetarian, and he exposed me to a lot of considerations around environmental concerns about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And so I think that was probably the earliest seed I can remember being planted about veganism and vegetarianism and just environmental considerations and how your choices of consumption affect others more than yourself. It made it more apparent. He pointed that out. So after that, there are a few other kind of key milestones. I actually had a chat with Steph, and she talked to me about veganism. That was probably the first time I'd actually spoken to someone about veganism directly, and we're able to have an engaging conversation and discuss various points.
Was that at the O Week stall, Jake?
Yeah, I think that was at O Week. That's probably when I started uni. So yeah, that was really cool that you were out there doing that. And obviously, it made a difference. It changed my perspective on it as well. So yeah, that was another seed that was planted. And then I think later on, I just started doing more reading for myself, started educating myself more. I learned about what was actually happening in the animal agriculture industry. And I read, initially I was more sort of utilitarian leaning. I learned about Peter Singer and his Animal Liberation, which is, it's meant to be kind of like one of the key works of veganism, animal rights, and that side of things. That obviously evolved later. But yeah, that sort of helped me. I also saw documentaries. So there's actually a variety of factors as to how I went vegan. But when you bring them all together, yeah, it culminated in about 4 years ago, just making a decision to change. So that's my story.
So you said that you remember essentially the day that you went vegan. Tell us more about that. What happened?
The day. Oh, okay. I'm not super fond of that day because we were eating meat at the time. I think it was I don't know. It was a chicken wing or something along the lines of that, and I think I put it down. And I had a vivid realization that that was actually someone. That was part of someone. Before that, my perception was totally different. But you come to that understanding, and then after that, I was completely. I think I had a connection. I realized that I had a connection with what was going on there. I had more empathy, and I realized I had that empathy within me. So then I just chose to live in line with those values. That's basically what happened. Just had to try and put behind any of the past things. It's hard to do when you've grown up, most of your life in a certain lifestyle, and especially coming from a culture that eats a lot of meat. That was a tricky thing to do. A lot of animal products. So, yeah, but for the better, onwards and upwards. I think try and improve, and I think everyone else can do the same.
Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jake. It is really interesting to just hear about how different people got there. And I don't remember the day that I went vegan. Like, I remember events that kind of led up to it, but I don't remember. Oh, I guess I do. I can maybe just tell a quick story of mine. I do remember possibly the last time that I ate meat. I can't remember about like if that was where that sat in relation to the other things like dairy and everything. But I remember I had made the decision to first be vegetarian. So I think, so for me, it was like when my friend in high school, she went on an exchange overseas to Argentina, I think. And I think while she was there, she must have seen a documentary. I think I remember her telling me, and it might have been Earthlings, but I can't remember what documentary it was. But anyway, she came back to school. We were in year 10 at the time, or maybe starting year 11. And she came back to school like as a vegan. And I think that's the first time that I'd really heard about veganism is from her. And but yeah, when she kind of educated me about it, it just made a lot of sense. And I was kind of like, yeah, animals suffer and die to make the animal products, and also that's unnecessary. Like there's this alternative, this other thing you can do, which is to be vegan. And then as soon as I kind of like made that connection, it was just, very similar to what Ella was saying. Like it just made sense. And it was like, why would I not be vegan if I can be vegan, so and then I decided to be vegan, but it probably took like, I think, I can't really remember, but it probably took maybe a few months to actually do it. But I think I did go vegetarian first, but I remember I had like made the decision to first at least be vegetarian. And then it was probably only like, I don't know, a few days after I decided to be vegetarian. And I was at, I think it was at Ella's school, like our primary school that I was visiting, and they had like a sausage sizzle there. And I just remember like getting a sausage and taking one bite and just suddenly being like, hang on, wait, I'm meant to be vegetarian. Like, so it was such an odd experience because it was just such a like habit to just eat animals that I wasn't even thinking like that this sausage is an animal until obviously when I started eating it, I was like, hang on, wait, this is meat. Like I'm not meant to be eating this. I decided that I would, so that was probably the last time I ate meat was that sausage. So I do vividly remember that experience in my mind. So that probably was the last time I ate meat. But yeah, it was so weird. It was just so like automatic, like, oh yeah, there's a sausage sizzle, I'm gonna get a sausage, just like I usually would do. And then realizing, hang on, like, yeah, this is not right.
Yeah.
Sounds like everyone's
experience with that. Steph was undone by a sausage, Jake by a chicken, and Ella by a cheesecake.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mark, what was your sounds like everyone's got that. There's like a vegan moment that everyone remembers distinctly. The last time that they did it and just marked a transition point in their life. maybe.
Yeah, I don't recall the last time I ate an animal product, but I do remember because my neighbor had a sheep, and I was just going through the mental gymnastics of like how can you respect a sheep but then also eat the sheep, because I'd formed some kind of bond with the sheep called orange peel. And yeah, I guess I just decided on a 2.5 hour drive back home that you couldn't like exploit someone and respect them. So you have to either be okay with exploiting them or respect them, and that's kind of the only options out there. So yeah, when I got back, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm vegan now. And then I do remember going to the fridge and the pantry and thinking, oh, I've got a bit of dairy, like I'll just use that up. It's no big deal. I've already purchased it. But then looking at it all, and I piled it all on my countertop, I was like, that's actually a lot of like animal products, just like sneaky hidden in a lot of food. And I was just looking at it for a while, and I thought, no, I can't do this. So I just put it in a bag, chucked it in the bin, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I guess that was cold turkey as well, I suppose.
So from that moment, you were vegan?
Yeah. But I don't remember the last time I had an animal product, but I guess that's the first time I rejected all animal products, I suppose.
Yeah. It sounds like for all of us, like once we did actually go vegan, we never really looked back. Or even once, even maybe before that, even once we made the decision that we would be, it was like very clear that that's what we would do. And we kind of never really, well, I don't know about you guys, but it seems like we never really questioned that decision once we made it. It was just a matter of like actually doing it. But yeah, it sounds like we never really looked back once we like made that connection about the animals and we decided to be vegan.
Yeah, I had a great conversation with a group when we did activism the other week, Steph. We were talking about the ethics of veganism, and then the conversation slowly morphed into like the practical questions. And then I brought it to the person's attention that I was speaking to. I was like, we've discussed the ethical, now we're discussing the practical. It's clear to me that you agree with the ethical, and we're just kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of it. And I think that's probably true for most of us, is we get sold on the ethical part and we kind of go vegan and then figure out the nuts and bolts later.
Yeah. It's like you're intellectually convinced.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of making it happen and trying to undo the habits. But maybe that's right. Like once we were intellectually convinced, there was no looking back from that point. It was just figuring out, okay, now I actually got to implement it and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it would be harder without, like I think that it's really great and like important to have that like intellectual understanding, because it makes the habits so much easier to kind of stick with. Because from my experience, like it will be like it was difficult, and I think for most people when they go vegan first, it will be difficult at first to totally switch your especially food is a big part of our life, the way you look at food, and what you're eating, what you're cooking, all those things. And so having that foundation where you're like, I'm going to keep backing myself and backing these ideas, because I really believe in this thing and like I need to do this thing. It just makes it so much easier. You will find a way. Like where there's a will, there's a way, right? So, I think that it's really essential to have that understanding there.
I think on the flip side of that as well, I totally agree that where there is a will, there is a way. And I think it's a very powerful thing to understand, especially when it comes to ethical situations, veganism, and many others in the world as well. But it also helped to have a support network. So I know Ella, she helped me because we met around a similar time when I went vegan. So she helped me to transition to veganism as well. And also Steph and Mark, obviously getting to know you guys as well, by proxy. So that helped a lot just for living vegan, but also for learning about veganism, understanding veganism. So definitely good to have a support network. I think that makes it a lot easier to become vegan if you can find that.
Yeah, the first thing I did when I went vegan was find some meetups, like meet some other vegans, because I predicted that would be a big factor in me, like sticking with it.
Yeah. And I guess for me it was my friend that was vegan, So yeah, we all kind of. I think it definitely does help to know someone that is vegan, to be able to just feel that little bit of connection and help if you need it and that kind of thing. But yeah, it certainly helps when the people around you are supportive, and I am grateful to like mum and dad for, even though I think they were a bit. I remember them being a bit worried that I was not going to be healthy. And they were worried about me also, influencing Ella, because Ella was quite a bit younger again, and so they were worried that like about both of us and our health. And it's kind of funny, like looking back, it kind of makes me laugh a little bit that back then, and they kind of got to me a little bit. Like I was worried as well that I was not going to be healthy, and because I made the decision to be vegan purely like on an ethical thing, I didn't really know a lot about like the health side of it or nutrition and stuff. So I had to kind of learn all that myself. But it's kind of funny now thinking about the fact that like a lot of people go vegan for health, whereas when I went vegan, it was like I thought it was unhealthy. So, but yeah, I think mum and dad were like worried about us not being healthy. So.
I can say the same with my family as well. When I went vegan, parents, they get concerned, especially when they don't understand what it's going to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, which I know that they just cared about us, and they were just worried about us. But I guess the point I was making is that aside from being worried about our health, they were still very supportive. Like I remember mum, would help, like she would try and cook more vegan meals, and but I did also try and do a lot of my own cooking too eventually. But it does help to have supportive people around you when you're going vegan. But I think also because I guess for me and Ella, because we went vegan when we were essentially still children and we were living at home and everything, it can, I think, I don't know about you, Ella, but I think because I've had that experience, it makes it more difficult for me to feel empathy for like grown adults who know about veganism. They've kind of had some education about it, and like they still just don't do it and choose not to be vegan. Like I just can't like relate to that. It's like if we could do it, like anyone can do it.
Yeah, well, kind of yes and no. Like, I think, like, I do agree with that. Like, I think most people, are able to go vegan, and like, as kind of a little kid, and like, I just remember fighting with mum about it, like, being upset, you being like, "Oh, cook all your meals, Ella," like, and just kind of like we're really fumbling for control over, our lives and the way we want to play out how our ethics, are in our lives. I do kind of relate to that in a sense, but I also relate to, when you are older, although you do have control over, I think, your life, it's like that, like as I've gotten older, it feels like there is a massive information that you also have to deal with. And so for some people that maybe don't connect with veganism and like understand the the animal rights kind of behind it and like the ethics and aren't morally connected to it, it might feel like, you know, just another kind of thing in the cloud of information and things to be concerned about. But you know, in like, I think as a general thing, yeah, I do think that, you know, if you have the physical means to be able to be vegan, then, you know, putting in the work to align your actions, you know, with, you know, whatever resources you have, use your actions to then be vegan, I think is, you know, not that hard in hindsight, I guess.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
Yeah, you might have
if that
more.
makes any sense.
Yeah, you might have a bit more patience than me. But no, when I'm talking to people, like I'm very patient and I try to be empathetic and everything. It's more just like in my head, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear excuses. Like I went
No.
vegan when I was still a child. Like you can do it.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean. And like, you know,
Yeah.
it's even like the kind of nutrition aspects of it, like it can take a while to get your head around it, but like it's just, you know, I think everyone should be, you know, if they can, caring about their nutrition, right? And so when you're vegan, like you kind of like hyper aware of it because people are constantly criticizing your nutrition. So I feel like vegans almost feel like, you know, in some cases might even be healthy, because I was getting regular blood tests, like they were fine, but I was still getting blood tests. I was still seeing the doctor. I was talking about my nutrition, you know. But yeah, so I think like, you know, if a young person, like a 13-year-old person, can kind of put in the research to look at nutrition and stuff, like it's probably something that, you know, an adult can do in like half the time, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's an interesting point, Steph.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Jake? It looked like you were maybe going to say
Yeah,
something.
I have a few things to say about that. I was thinking, you know, that this is a bit funny. Maybe that gives a bit of a theory as to why veganism is seen as more healthy, because vegans have more pressure to be healthy on a vegan diet. Like, who knows? I mean, maybe not, but it's possible. But also, yeah, on what you were saying before, Steph, and Ella, about, you know, how it can be sometimes engaging with people that aren't able to, I don't know, muster up the courage or take the actions they need to become vegan. I can see that, yeah, definitely can become frustrating, especially when you know it is possible, you know, that can be done. Obviously, everyone has unique life circumstances that can make it more difficult for them at the time. And I completely empathize with all of those reasons, because we were all in that position once before. But I think it is within all of us to muster up the courage and the strength to become vegan. I think at some point you kind of just need to kick up the butt. Like, I think when I went vegan, I don't know, I just gave myself that. I was like, nah, not anymore. I need to stop this. And that's what I did. And I stopped making excuses at that point. Other people are not at that point yet. And yeah, I guess I would obviously advocate that the sooner the better. But you know, yeah, everyone's trying to work through it in their own ways.
Yeah, one of my gripes at the moment with like vegan advocacy is shifting that responsibility either to like governments or other organizations. Like I think we need to maintain pressure on the individual. That's the individual's responsibility, as you said, to muster up that courage.
Yeah, completely agree.
Because you could have very easily gone, yeah, we should be vegan. I'll, you know, donate to some cause or donate to some charity or put political pressure on someone and then kind of negate any responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah, I want to thank my friend who taught me about diffusion of responsibility when I was younger, who allowed me to see past those kinds of like fallacies that you should like equate it to some other powers, Mark. And I learned that actually all of us are the ones that are responsible for what's happening. Every single one of us contributes. So we're all responsible. Yeah. So that was
Nothing's really going to change until the people, you know, that we change. The government is just going to respond to what the people decide is valuable and what they demand. And, you know, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the amazing thing about, veganism is that to kind of reach a baseline is to, do everything that you're doing as a non-vegan, but pretty much just replace, those individual things. It's not like there's kind of extra that you need to do, I guess, like, swapping a non-vegan meal for a vegan meal, you have to eat during the day. So it's about swapping what you're already doing, and, at the beginning, maybe there is a bit more, to kind of catch up on knowledge and what to cook. But once you're kind of past that hurdle, it's about living your life. Like, you can go work, study, do what you would have been doing anyway, if you know what I mean. Like, you can still live your life, as you want to. It's just about, taking out the exploitative practices and, substituting it with something that's, less or not exploitative. So I think, yeah, definitely, like, the individual power that we each have over the items we consume and the industries we promote, they do, make a difference. And, even if we had an overhaul of the government and all of this stuff, like, if people are still eating meat and dairy and eggs, I mean, those things will still continue to be around, right? So, eventually everyone will need to be vegan, to have a vegan world. Like, that's nothing the government can really do to enforce that,
Yeah, and you shouldn't need to abolish capitalism either, I don't think, before the world can go vegan. Just want to put that out there as well. I think it's possible to be vegan.
Are you saying you don't need to abolish capitalism?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard things to the contrary, but I think that's
vegan.
Yes. Yeah, anyway.
Yes.
Maybe we can do a deep dive sometime, Jake.
Yeah, maybe some other time or later.
So I guess you, Jake, you said you've been vegan for about 4 years. Ella, it's been how long for you again? Did you say 10?
About 10 years.
About 10,
yeah.
And Mark, about 8.
8 or 9, I can't remember.
And me probably nearly 13. How do we think that since we each went vegan, how do we think the vibe has like changed over time, and the animal rights and vegan scene has changed over time?
Difficult question. It's complicated.
I think definitely probably compared to like when Ella and I went vegan, like there's a lot more people know about it, for one thing. I remember back, when I first went vegan, like, and I might go to a restaurant or something and I'd have to like explain to them like what vegan means to be able to get a vegan meal. So usually they'd have to try and make something up different for me entirely, or get one of their vegetarian meals and try and make it vegan. But I remember having to like explain like the amount of times I said, no meat, no dairy, no eggs. But now a lot of people know about what vegan is. There's still a fair few who don't. Like, I wouldn't say that we're completely out of the woods in terms of like having to explain, like when you, like sometimes when you go to a, restaurant or eatery or something, you do still have to kind of like explain what vegan means. But it's definitely getting rarer, and there's a lot more vegan options on menus, like pretty much wherever you go. When I first went vegan, I would never have imagined that like Hungry Jack's would have a vegan burger. Like, so stuff like that. I've definitely noticed some big changes in terms of like accessibility and availability of vegan foods, which is really good. But so I think in that sense, there's been a lot of positives. But in terms of more like ideologies and what veganism, the kind of movement has become, I think there have maybe been some maybe not so good changes, because I think like it, it's kind of gone from like vegan is an animal rights thing to more of like it's a diet. Like I see a lot of in vegan groups and stuff that I'm part of online, and even in person, there's just a lot of people that I think are literally just like dietary vegans, and then other stuff like they're not vegan, like they might still do non-vegan things like buy leather or go to a zoo or ride horses. And the amount of times I see like people in vegan groups with like their profile pictures like them riding a horse. Mark and I briefly talked about this in our last video, but yeah, so I feel like it's become more of a dietary thing. What do you guys think?
It's more
Definitely.
human centric. The trade off of using the benefits to the environment and the benefits to health, like to overstating those benefits, I think has been a massive trade off. And veganism has become very human centric, and the focus has moved away from animal rights. Like that's the only thing the animals get. Like this is all they have, an animal rights movement, and we've managed to make it about ourselves, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, like I do have to agree with that. I think, yeah, human-centric is a good word there, Mark, because, I was going to say a bit selfish as well. Like I think that, as humans, we care about ourselves and our immediate community the most, probably, right? And, veganism is asking people to extend that care outwards to, other species, not just humans, not just people that are around me, and that I interact with daily. And so, I think the health thing about veganism is, very clearly kind of a selfish, and I don't mean selfish as like, I mean more just self-centered, I guess. I don't mean that as a super negative term, but I'm just saying that it's like about the self, hopefully I'm explaining this right, but it's, you're wanting to improve your health. And I think also the environment reason why people, eat plant-based is, I think is good in terms of, I want to help the environment too, but it's also, also from a place of thinking about the self. We want an environment that we, can enjoy. And so, although I'm not like anti-environment, but it's like, for me, veganism is about, the abolishment of the exploitative practices of, animals and using animals. So, taking it away from that for the health and the environmental reasons, is just not really doing the due diligence for the animals and not really showing the respect that, as Steph said, like I think, this movement is their only chance to have, humans talking to other humans about what we shouldn't be doing to this other group of, non-human animals. So, it is, it does, make me a bit sad that I like, that is the case. And then I think it also, like, it's really good that the term vegan is becoming, much widely used, and it's on menus, and a lot of people know. There's still some people that haven't heard the term before. But I think it's. I was just pondering on this today before our call, and it's kind of almost a bad thing in a sense, because people are almost like, oh, I know what that is. We don't need to talk about it anymore because I know what it is. But a lot of people haven't had the conversation that is like, oh, what is this? What does it mean to not exploit animals? Why should we care about this? Why should we give animals rights? Like, why should we have rights for animals? So, in some sense, it's good that it's widespread, but the message about animal rights, I would say, is still very prominent, but a lot of people, are can much quickly dismiss veganism because they think they know already, right? And I feel like some vegans also feel that as well. They're like, oh, why would we talk about it? Why would we, push it down other people's throats? Even if it's someone else asking us about it and that kind of thing. But it's like, but a lot of people don't actually get it. They haven't actually had a conversation about it. They've just seen what they see online, which, could be kind of the extreme ends of, opinions.
Yeah,
and things like
they think they understand it, but they're seeing like a straw man perhaps of what veganism actually is. Like they don't actually understand on a deep level. They don't have a connection with veganism. They don't know what it means. And then because of that, you think you know what it is. So it's like, oh, well, I know what this is, I'll move on. So that definitely, I think that has changed. I think that's pretty clear. Yeah. Over the years, like what you were saying before, like people didn't know what it was, Steph, but now people do. But they don't properly understand it. So it's kind of unfortunate in that sense.
Yeah, like I was literally, I have this page that I run, a vegan page, and I think yesterday I was literally, I made a post that said something like, that veganism is not a diet, and like we don't want a whole bunch of people running around saying that they're vegan, but then they'll go to like a zoo or ride a horse. And then I had someone commenting who I think it's like he identified as vegan, but he was like basically like, what do you mean? Like he thought veganism was a diet. So he was like, what? So people who eat a vegan diet can't call themselves vegan? And then we kind of had this conversation around it. And I said, well, not if they use animals in other ways, because, like trying to explain that veganism is a philosophy of being against animal exploitation. And then the reason that you would eat a vegan diet is because you believe in that philosophy. But it's not just about food. Like that's just one of the branches of, like, that's just one of the ways that we use animals that a vegan rejects. But a vegan rejects all use of animals, and so they don't use them for food or for clothing or entertainment or anything. And he was like, so what, if I bought a car that I knew had leather interior, does that mean I'm not vegan? And I was like, yeah, like if you're knowingly buying leather and there's another alternative, like you don't need to, like you can buy a car that doesn't have leather interior, then yeah, you're not really vegan then. Like, what's the difference between buying a car that has leather and buying a steak or, other animal products? Like, so I was trying to explain to him, but yeah, it was just very eye-opening. It's like the fact that I have to explain to people who call themselves vegan that they shouldn't be buying leather, like it just made me, yeah, a little bit frustrated that it's gotten to that point.
Yeah, what a get out of jail free card. Like when I went vegan, you couldn't be vegan if you were using animals, like if you weren't against exploitation. But nowadays, I guess they're trying to get more people to call themselves vegan, but they're not really trying to get more vegans, if that makes sense.
They're growing the movement, but they're watering it down so it can be more inclusive. It happens with all kinds of movements, and it's happening with veganism. It's diverged in meaning.
Yeah, more inclusive of non-vegans, the irony.
Yeah.
And I think I think when you go vegan, you have to stay open-minded that you might be exploiting animals in some way that you're not aware of. Like I remember, I guess one thing that I did do, while I was vegan, that I unintentionally consumed animal products, was I bought like a film camera, like a disposable camera when I think I was like 15 or something, 16, or maybe older. And I was using it, and then after, taking a few photos, I was like, wait, is this vegan? I don't know what made me think of it. And I checked, and yeah, film is made with gelatin, which is not a vegan product. And, I was kind of sad, like, because I was wanting to get into maybe film photography. But, I kind of just held myself accountable, and I was like, well, I can't do that. Like that's just something that I don't want to do because it's using animals. So yeah, you kind of got to keep open-minded that, and that you're not this person that knows everything and won't, stuff up or like be told information that does conflict with your understanding of what, veganism is. But I think, we should be pushing towards an ideal, if that exists. But you know what I mean? So that's just a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, Mark, there's no like it's funny how many people do, like how many vegans say this thing about we should be trying to be more inclusive of people. But it's kind of like, yes, but also if someone is not vegan, then they're not vegan. Like it's not about trying to, like, we shouldn't be trying to be so inclusive that we end up actually just including people as vegans who actually aren't vegan. Like you have to draw the line somewhere, and that line, I think, is animal, like knowingly and willingly contributing to animal exploitation. Like I think if you do that, like you're not vegan unless you didn't realize that, unless it was animal exploitation, or you kind of didn't realize that it was wrong. So yeah, I think
inclusive of the
it's not about
perpetrator.
us. It's not about making humans feel included. It's about what is in the animal's best interests. And
inclusion should be everybody deserves an education. That should be the inclusion. Like that's how we conduct our activism, right? Is everybody is entitled to an education. Everybody's entitled to know the facts and have the discussion. But we don't need to be inclusive of perpetrators of against animal rights or that are supporting animal exploitation. Like that's not where we should be inclusive.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Like we're inclusive in the sense that we think everyone can be vegan and we want everyone to be vegan. Like that is inclusivity. We want everyone to be vegan. We want it to be as accessible as possible. But yeah, inclusivity doesn't mean that we just accept that people say that they're vegan when they're actually not doing vegan actions or they're doing non-vegan actions. Anyway, it's interesting discussion, isn't it?
You made me think of a question.
We'll have to do a part 2, I think.
Yeah, we've just gone over an hour, so maybe we should wrap up there. We try to keep our little videos about an hour long. But yeah, it was so great to have you guys on the channel, Jake and Ella. Did you have any kind of like closing thoughts or?
Yeah, actually, I think if anyone is watching this video or comes to watch it at some point in the future, just a reminder that the courage exists within you to be open-minded and to try and be vegan and to try and live more ethically and morally. That's what my closing remark would be to those that are watching.
Love it.
Good to be on the channel. It was nice to talk to you guys on the live stream.
Yeah, thanks.
There's no way any of us can follow that, Jake. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, Ella, go on, Ella.
Well, I just wanted to say, thanks, Mark and Steph, for having me on this video and opening up this discussion. I just think that, how can I follow that? What can I say? No, but I was thinking when we were talking about how we went vegan and stuff, like, it's so important. Like, I wish, people who are interested in veganism, like, could see those kind of conversations and see that, we weren't vegan at one point and now we are, and that, it's not this kind of elusive, thing. And and I guess to just my closing remarks on that last conversation was, I think, although I will always speak respectfully and, I really believe in the education about veganism and animal rights. At the end of the day, like, I'm doing this and I changed my life to begin with because I don't want animals to be exploited. So, at the end of the day, I have to do what I think and what I, I constantly think, and I'm thinking very hard about the way I'm going about my life and the way I'm introducing ethics into my life and stuff. So, at the end of the day, I have to do what I think is going to allow me to help them the most and do the best by them, how I can show my respect, because, they're the ones that are suffering. And so, that's kind of just my, opinion about that. And veganism isn't this secret in crowd club thing. Like it's about people that are like really trying to, do what they think is right for animals and to, get rights for animals. So that's
100%. Yeah.
present.
Thanks, Heather and Jake. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there, and we will probably be live again soon, maybe on our Wednesday night. Otherwise, maybe, well, we definitely will be next Saturday at 9 a.m. So tune in then if anyone would like to. And yeah, all right. Well, have a good night to you guys.
Thanks, Heather and Jake, for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Yeah, we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.